You think manipulation looks like some movie villain twirling a mustache and plotting your downfall? It doesn't. Real manipulation is your friend suggesting a restaurant and somehow you end up paying for both meals. It's your co-worker dumping their work on you and making you feel good about it. It's someone getting you to apologize for something they did wrong. And it happens so smoothly you won't even realize it is happening until you reach driving home, wondering how you just agreed to something you absolutely did not want to do. The scariest part, these tactics are everywhere. Your family uses them. Your boss uses them. That person you're dating definitely uses them. And most of the time, they're not even doing it on purpose. They've just stumbled onto patterns that work. And now those patterns are automatic. So, let me show you what to watch for. Because once you see these tactics, you can't unsee them. And that awareness is the only real defense you have. Let's start with one of the most common ones. It's called strategic incompetence. And it's brilliant in how simple it is. Someone does a task so badly that you never ask them to do it again. They volunteered to help, but they mess it up just enough that fixing their mistakes takes more time than doing it yourself. They load the dishwasher wrong. They forget important details in the report. They show up late and unprepared. And what do? You stop asking them for help. You just do it yourself. Which is exactly what they wanted. The genius of this tactic is it looks like failure. They seem incompetent, maybe even a little embarrassed about it. So you don't get mad. You just quietly take over their responsibilities. And they get exactly what they wanted without having to actually refuse or negotiate. I watched this happen with a roommate once. Every time it was his turn to clean, he'd do such a terrible job that someone else would redo it within a day. After a few months, people just stopped expecting him to clean. He trained an entire apartment that he was hopeless at basic tasks, and it got him out of work for a full year. That's not incompetence. That's strategy. Here's another one that's so common you probably experienced it today. It's called emotional blackmail, but it doesn't look as dramatic as it sounds. Someone doesn't directly ask you for what they want. Instead, they make you feel bad until you offer it yourself. They sigh heavily. They mention how stressed they are. They talk about how nobody ever helps them. They don't ask. They just create an emotional atmosphere where helping them feels like the only way to make the discomfort stop. I'm just so overwhelmed with everything. I don't know how I'm going to get it all done. They're not asking you to help. But now, if you don't offer, you're the person who heard someone struggling and did nothing. So you volunteer, and they accept like they're doing you a favor by letting you help. You just got manipulated, and you probably even felt good about it in the moment. A variation of this is the guilt trip disguised as concern. I just worry about you when you don't answer your phone. Translation: you need to be available to me whenever I want. And if you're not, I'm going to frame your boundaries as you being careless with my feelings. They're not expressing genuine concern. They're training you to prioritize their needs over your own time and space. And they're doing it in a way where pushing back makes you look like the bad guy. Now let me show you one that happens in almost every argument you've ever had. It's called moving the goalposts. You address the issue they brought up. You apologize, or explain, or fix the problem. And instead of accepting that, they bring up something else. Then something else. Then something from 6 months ago. The original complaint was never the real issue. It was just an opening to attack. This happens in relationships constantly. You never listen to me. So you make an effort to listen better. But now it's, well, you only listen because I had to ask you to. So you try to anticipate their needs. Now you're being controlling and trying to read my mind. You can't win because winning was never an option. The goal isn't to solve a problem. The goal is to keep you off balance and defensive. Because when you're defending yourself, you're not questioning them. Here's one that works specifically because it feels like the opposite of manipulation. It's called love bombing, and it shows up in new relationships all the time. Someone showers you with attention, affection, gifts, time, compliments. They text you constantly. They want to see you every day. They tell you you're special, different, the best thing that's ever happened to them. And it feels amazing. It feels like you finally found someone who really sees you. But what's actually happening is they're creating dependency. They're flooding you with so much positive attention that your brain gets addicted to it. You start needing that level of intensity to feel okay. And once you're hooked, once you've organized your life and emotions around this person, that's when things shift. The attention starts to come and go. They're hot and cold, and now you're chasing that initial feeling, doing whatever it takes to get back to how things were at the beginning. You're compromising boundaries you swore you wouldn't compromise. You're accepting behavior you said you'd never accept. That initial love bombing wasn't love. It was an investment. They gave you intense attention up front so they could withdraw it later as a control mechanism. And it works because you don't realize what happened until you're already in too deep. Let me give you one more. That's so subtle, most people never catch it. It's called perspective manipulation. Someone tells you how you feel instead of asking you. You're not really upset about that. You're just tired. You don't mean that. You're being too sensitive. They're literally telling you that your own perception of your own emotions is wrong. This is crazy making because it puts you in a position where you have to defend your own feelings. And the more you defend them, the more emotional you get, which they then use as proof that you're being irrational. Over time, this makes you doubt yourself. You stopped trusting your own reactions. You think maybe they're right. Maybe you are too sensitive. Maybe you are making a big deal out of nothing. And once you stop trusting yourself, you start trusting them to tell you what's real. That's not guidance. That's control. So, what do you do with all this information? How do you protect yourself when manipulation is literally everywhere? First, trust your discomfort. If something feels off, it probably is. Your gut picks up on inconsistencies your conscious mind hasn't processed yet. Stop talking yourself out of your own instincts. Second, watch for patterns, not incidents. Anyone can have a bad day, but if someone consistently makes you feel confused, guilty, or like you're always the problem, that's not coincidence. That's strategy. Third, name it when you see it. You don't have to be aggressive about it. But you can say, I noticed when I set a boundary, you bring up something I did wrong to avoid the topic. Or, I feel like you retelling me how I feel instead of listening to what I am actually saying. Just naming the pattern often stops it. Because manipulation works best in the shadows. The second you shine light on it, the person has to either admit what they're doing or stop doing it. And fourth, be willing to walk away. Some people won't stop manipulating you because it works too well. Your only real power is removing yourself from the game entirely. You can't control whether people try to manipulate you, but you can control whether it works. Pay attention, trust yourself, and stop making excuses for people who consistently make you feel small.